On Thursday, three of the country's largest labor unions sent a letter to top congressional Democrats outlining their increasing concerns over how Obamacare will affect health benefits for middle-class Americans and even the concept of a 40-hour work week. Joining us now to talk about it further is Avik Roy, Senior Fellow at the Manhattan Institute. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I want to start with this question. A lot of people say that, the unions are sort of changing their tune, that they really backed this law. Are they changing their tune? Did they know this was coming? What do you make of it?
Well, they're definitely changing their tune, but they also knew that this was coming. So they basically were involved in writing this law. They were in the White House every other week, talking with the administration, talking with Congress. So they knew this was coming. And, I was wondering about this when I wrote my piece for Forbes about this. I'm like, why, when they knew that this was coming, and why are they getting so upset now? And a lot of union members wrote into me, and they gave me an idea that I hadn't considered before, which is that what's happening now is that a lot of rank-and-file members in these unions are getting their hours cut, they're losing their benefits, they're losing their jobs, and they're upset. And they're saying, union leaders, you asked us to lobby for this law, and now my hours are getting cut. What happened?
Yeah, and why is the reason that they're reaching out specifically to Democratic leaders in Congress, in both the Senate and the House, instead of the White House directly?
Well, that's the interesting point that you raised, Shannon. So they did reach out to the White House. They were hoping, like that old waivers for favors thing from a couple years ago, they were hoping that the White House would create some exceptions for them so that their workers, their members, would be exempted from some of these rules. But the White House refused to do that because in this case, exempting the labor unions from these rules would cost hundreds of billions of dollars in tax subsidies. So because the White House refused, now they're going to Congress, to Pelosi and Reid, to try to get some changes through.
Okay, so what happens to this relationship now? I mean, obviously, the machinations of the law and how it plays out, are still being debated. They're, still fighting about fixes on the Hill and where we go from there. So there may be some room, I guess, for the unions to get the attention of legislators still on the Hill working on this and the regulations as they roll out those kinds of things. But what happens to this relationship? Because as we all know, and as you mentioned, unions were key in backing this legislation. They're also key in getting those Democratic leaders elected to Congress and the president to the White House. If they don't get what they want with the health care law, it's not like they're going to start backing conservatives.
Yeah, I think the relationship between labor unions and the Democratic Party is so deep, decades long, generations long. It's not going to necessarily disrupt that. But I think what you may see, is a lot of rank and file union members, the former Reagan Democrats, as you will. They're the ones who are going to say, you know what? The labor union leaders betrayed me. I'm the one who's getting hurt by this, and they might vote for somebody else.
Is there anything left that these leaders could do for the unions as they're pressing now very publicly for some changes?
Yeah, it's very difficult to envision. The one thing that you might see them support is a repeal of the employer mandate, the provision in Obamacare that requires firms with more than 50 employees to offer health coverage to a lot of their workers, because that's part of what's creating a lot of these disruptions. So if they sign on to that kind of an effort, maybe that's something where Republicans and Democrats could agree. But there's no way Republicans are going to agree to give unions special treatment so that their members can get both employer-sponsored coverage and tax credits that are designed for the uninsured. That'll never happen. So a lot of what they're asking for basically is unrealistic to ask Congress to do, which is why they went to the White House first.
All right, Avik Roy with a lot of good insights on why the unions don't like Obamacare now. Thank you very much. Good to see you today.
My pleasure, Shannon.